Before Lady Gaga jumped from the roof at NRG Stadium and the world was introduced to wardrobe malfunctions, Super Bowl halftime shows were a bit more modest. But that doesn't mean they couldn't aim for the stars. I have never watched my team play in the Super Bowl. I have never cared about the Super Bowl halftime show, and I have not enjoyed a Super Bowl commercial since frogs taught me to drink beer. But as I have learned through many failed relationships, it's not always about me. On January 15th, 1967, LA hosted the first Super Bowl, which at the time was called the AFL-NFL World Championship Game. It pitted the NFL champion Green Bay Packers against the AFL champion Kansas City Chiefs. The powerhouse Packers, led by Vince Lombardi and his quarterback Bart Starr, had been NFL champions 4 out of the previous 6 years, and were given a chance to prove the NFL's dominance over the AFL once and for all. And they did. The Packers won 35-10, and the NFL absorbed the AFL 3 years later. We're not here to talk about the game. Like the Tinder date your friend brought to the Super Bowl party, we're here for the halftime show. Most sources credit the first halftime show to the round mound of sound Al Hirt and the marching bands of the University of Arizona and Grambling State, which really downplays the whole thing. Super Sights and Sounds, as it was called, featured a 200-person chorus, 300 pigeons, 10,000 balloons, and 2 flying men. Allow me to explain. In 1960, the U.S. Army contracted Bell Aerosystems to build a jetpack to increase soldier mobility. Bell placed engineer Wendell Moore in charge of the project. While testing his prototype in 1961, a malfunction caused the pack to crash, breaking Moore's kneecap in the process. No longer able to fly, Moore needed a test pilot. Enter the hero of our story, Bill Suter. Suter, a 19-year-old student, was Moore's neighbor, and like most of us, he had no prior jetpack flying experience. But that didn't hold him back. He earned $147.50 per week test flying Moore's rocket belt, as it was called. And in 1966, the team found their launching pad into showbiz when Suter took flight in front of an awestruck crowd at Disneyland. It was here that they met Tommy Walker, then director of entertainment at Disneyland. Walker decided to join forces with the Rocket Belt team, and the following year he booked their next big gig, halftime at a football game called the AFL-NFL World Championship, in front of a crowd of 60,000 people. But for a crowd that size, one flying man just wasn't enough. So Bill Suter, donning a shirt that read NFL, teamed up with fellow Rocketeer Robert Corder, who represented the AFL on his chest. And once the marching bands assumed formation, Suter and Corder blasted off in opposite directions, getting as high as 60 feet above the ground, and continued to fly around the field for about 22 seconds, the max flight time for the Rocket Belts, before landing back down at midfield. After the show, Suter and Corder disappeared into a back room within the stadium. They didn't watch the drubbing the Packers gave the Chiefs, but that didn't matter. They had left their mark on football lore forever. Suter went on to become Sean Connery's Rocket Man stunt double in the Bond film Thunderball, and even performed with the entire world watching at the 1984 Olympic Games in LA. As for that Army contract, they decided they had no use for a pack that can only fly for 22 seconds, and increasing the flight time increased the cost too much to be practical. But the real sad story here is that neither you nor I have our own jetpack, and I think the odds are more in favor of me getting one than seeing the Jets play in the Super Bowl. Hey, if you like this, share it, watch the other ones, and then call 911 immediately because I'm being held against my will. 3, 2...